If you want sweet, juicy tomatoes this summer, not split, bland, or half-eaten ones, there are 6 things you need to do right now, in the heat of midsummer. Spring is the easy part. The weather is cool, the bugs are quiet, but midsummer is where the harvest is won or lost. This is when your plants either keep setting heavy, healthy tomatoes, or they start dropping flowers, cracking fruit, curling leaves, and leaving you with a disappointing harvest after all that work. And number 1 is the one most people skip. It may be sitting right under your plants at this very moment, quietly working against them. And you would never know it until the damage shows up. Stick around to the end, too, because the bonus tip is one simple 20-minute setup that makes almost every other step easier. Let's start with number 1. Section 1. Mulch the right way. Number 1 is mulch. And this is the step most people either skip or get wrong without realizing it. By midsummer, your soil is working against you. The sun is hot, the top few inches dry out fast, and the moisture in the ground swings from soaked to bone dry and back again. Tomatoes hate that kind of instability. It's what leads to blossom end rot, those ugly black sunken spots on the bottom of the fruit, and it's what makes your tomatoes crack right when they're about to ripen. A good layer of mulch takes a lot of that pressure off your plants. 2 to 3 inches of natural mulch over the soil keeps the moisture even, keeps the roots cool, smothers weeds, and helps your fruit ripen more evenly, with fewer cracks and less stress. If you do nothing else from this list, mulching your plants now will make a real difference. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. Not all mulch is safe, and the wrong batch can slowly wreck your plants, even though it looks completely natural. Some straw, some hay, and some bagged manure carry leftover weed killer in them. It's a type of herbicide that doesn't break down for months, sometimes years. It survives the animal that ate the hay. It survives composting, and it comes into your garden hidden inside the very mulch you laid down to protect your plants. Tomatoes are extremely sensitive to it. We're talking tiny, tiny amounts, far too small for a normal lab test to even pick up, but it's enough to make your new leaves curl, twist, and cup downward. The plant gets stunted. The growth comes in thin and strappy, almost fern-like, and no matter how much you water or feed it, it just keeps going downhill. And here's the frustrating part. A lot of gardeners see this, assume it's the heat or a watering problem, and keep right on watering and feeding, which only pulls more of that herbicide down into the root zone. So before you trust a new pile of straw or manure, do this simple test. Take a little of it, mix it into a pot of clean soil, and plant a few bean seeds. Beans are very sensitive, so they'll warn you fast. Plant the same beans in a pot of plain soil right next to it. Wait 2 to 3 weeks. If the beans in both pots grow up healthy and normal, your mulch is safe to use. But if the beans in the mulch pot come up twisted, curled, or stunted, throw that batch out. Don't put it anywhere near your tomatoes. It takes 1 pot and a few seeds, and it can save your entire garden. So, mulch your tomatoes. Just know what you're laying down first. Section 2. Pick at the right time. Number 2 is all about when you pick your tomatoes. And this one surprises a lot of people. You don't actually have to wait until a tomato turns fully red on the vine. In fact, waiting that long is often a mistake. So what's going on? The moment a tomato first starts to blush, when you see that first hint of color break at the bottom of the fruit, it has already done most of the hard work. It's mature enough to finish ripening just fine on your kitchen counter, at room temperature, away from everything that wants to damage it. And out in the garden, there's plenty waiting to do exactly that. Leave a ripe tomato hanging out there, and it's a target. One hard rain can split it wide open. Birds peck it. Stink bugs poke into it. The riper and redder it gets, the more attention it draws. So by bringing it inside, at that first blush, you protect it from all of that. Now, I want to be straight with you here, because you may have heard someone say a tomato stops getting fed once it starts to color, that it's completely cut off from the plant. That's not quite true. The plant can still send some sugar into that fruit right up until it's fully ripe. So a vine-ripened slicer may have a small flavor edge. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, but here's the trade-off. You're giving up a little of that edge in exchange for not losing the whole tomato to a crack, a bird, or a bug. For most of your fruit, that's a smart deal. A slightly less intense tomato in your kitchen beats a perfect one lost on the vine. There is one exception, though, and it's worth knowing. Cherry tomatoes. Those little ones are different. If your weather is dry and the pests aren't bad, Let your cherry tomatoes hang and ripen on the plant. The small varieties tend to need that extra time on the vine to reach their richest, sweetest flavor. So with cherries, a little patience pays off. So for your big slicing tomatoes, pick them early, at that first blush, and let them finish inside. For your cherries, let them ride a little longer. Do that, and you'll bring in far more good fruit than you're used to. Instead of watching your best tomatoes split and disappear right before you get to them. Real quick, before we move on, if your tomato leaves are curling right now, I want to help you figure out why, because, like we just saw, the cause matters. Drop a comment and tell me where it's happening. Type old leaves if it's the lower, older leaves rolling up. Type new growth if it's the top leaves twisting and coming in thin. That one detail tells you a lot about what's really going on, and I'll point you in the right direction. And if this is helping so far, go ahead and hit that like button. It helps other gardeners find this too. Okay, section 3. Shade the heat, not the sun. Number 3 is shade cloth. And this one comes with a big misunderstanding I want to clear up. You may have heard that tomatoes don't really like full sun, that they're some kind of shade-loving plant. That's not right. Tomatoes love the sun. They want 6 to 8 hours of direct light a day, and they need it to make the sugars that turn into sweet fruit. So we are not shading them because they're afraid of the sun. We shade them because of the heat. Here's the thing most people don't realize. When the temperature climbs too high, over about 90 degrees in the day, or above 75 at night, something goes wrong inside the flowers. The pollen starts to fail. And when the pollen fails, the flowers can't set fruit. They just dry up and drop off. You get a plant full of blossoms that never turn into tomatoes. On top of that, the fruit you do have can get scalded, pale, leathery patches where the sun burned right through the skin. That's what shade cloth is really for. Not to block the sun, to take the edge off the heat. A light shade cloth, around 30 to 40%, is all you want. That's enough to cool the air around your flowers by a few degrees, protect the pollen, and shield the fruit from sun scald, while still letting through plenty of light for the plant to feed itself. Whatever you do, don't reach for the heavy stuff. Anything over 50% starts robbing your plant of the light it needs, and you'll trade one problem for another. And one more thing, because this depends on where you live. If you're up north, near the Great Lakes, or somewhere with mild coastal summers, don't copy a hot climate setup. You may not need shade cloth at all, except during a real heat wave. Put it up when temperatures spike, not as a permanent roof over your plants all summer long. So put up some light shade cloth when the heat sets in. Just remember, you're shading the heat, not the sun. Section 4. Don't overfeed your plants. Number 4 is feeding, and this is one where more is not better. By midsummer, your plants are hungry. That's real. Whatever you put in the hole back at planting time is long gone, and your tomatoes are working hard to ripen fruit. So yes, they need feeding right now. But here's where a lot of people go wrong. They get on a strict every 2-week schedule and just keep pouring it on, whether the plant needs it or not. And too much feed, especially too much nitrogen, backfires. When you overdo the nitrogen, your plant pours its energy into green growth instead of fruit. You get tall, soft, leafy stems racing upward, and the flowers either never come or fall off before they set. Worse, all that excess actually competes with the plant's ability to take up calcium. And that's what brings on blossom end rot. The very thing you were trying to grow your way out of, you can feed your way into. So instead of feeding by the calendar, read your plant. Let me give you 3 quick signs to watch for. First, if your plant is shooting up tall and soft with lush growth but few flowers, that's too much nitrogen. Ease off. Second, if you've got flowers but they keep dropping in the heat, don't reach for the fertilizer. That's the heat stressing the plant, not hunger. More feed won't bring those flowers back. And third, if you're still getting blossom end rot even after you've added calcium, the real problem is almost always uneven watering, not a calcium shortage. Steady moisture helps prevent that far better than another dose of fertilizer. So yes, fertilize your tomatoes, but keep it moderate, keep it balanced, and let the plant tell you what it needs. Don't pour on more just to feel like you're doing something. Section 5. Don't strip your plant, just clean the bottom. Number 5 is pruning. And this might be the one that saves you the most tomatoes, because for most home gardens, the answer is stop cutting so much. There's this idea out there that you should keep snipping off the side shoots, the suckers, thinning your plant down to a stem or two. And for most backyard growers, that's costing you fruit. Every sucker you cut off is one less growing point making leaves, and those leaves are what feed your tomatoes. Trials have shown that heavy pruning can cost you 30 to 40% of your total harvest. On top of that, all that leafy growth is shade. It's what keeps your fruit from getting scalded by the sun. Now, I know the big fear here is disease. People worry that a bushy, leafy plant traps moisture and brings on those leaf spots and blights. And that fear isn't crazy. But the fix isn't to strip your plant bare. So what's really going on? A lot of those leaf diseases start in the soil and splash up onto the lowest leaves when it rains, or when you water. So the smart move is to deal with the bottom, not the top. Clean off the lowest leaves, that bottom 6 to 12 inches near the ground. Lay down your mulch, which catches the splash before it ever reaches a leaf. And give your plants enough room. Space them out so the air can move through and dry the leaves off. A bushy plant only becomes a problem when it's crammed up against its neighbors with no airflow. The answer to that is spacing, not scalping your plant. One important note though. This applies to the big, tall, climbing tomatoes, the indeterminate kind, and only when you've got a sturdy cage or trellis holding them up. If you're growing the shorter, bushy, determinate types, don't pinch off their suckers at all. You'll cut your harvest right off. And either way, every plant needs real support. A heavy, unpruned plant left to flop onto the ground will rot its fruit right there in the dirt. So don't strip your tomatoes down to a bare stem. Clean the bottom, mulch underneath, give them room, and hold them up. Let the rest of that plant do its job. Section 6. Deal with a sick plant fast. Number 6 isn't about growing. It's about protecting everything you've already grown. Because every so often, one plant gets sick. And what you do in the next day or two decides whether it stays one plant or takes the whole row down with it. First, you have to tell the difference between normal thirst and real disease. On a hot afternoon, tomatoes wilt. That's normal, they perk back up in the evening. So here's the test. Water deeply in the evening. If the next morning it's still hanging limp while the soil underneath is still moist, that's not normal thirst anymore. It may be a wilt disease coming up from the soil. And the hard truth with those soil wilts is this. Once it takes hold, you can't cure it. The kindest thing you can do for the rest of your garden is pull that plant out, and do it soon, before it spreads. When you pull it, don't toss it on the compost pile. Some of these diseases can live in the soil for years, and your compost will just spread it right back through your garden next season. Bag it up, and get it out, into the trash, away from your beds. And one more step people forget. Clean your tools. If you touch that sick plant with your pruners or your hands, wipe them down before you go near a healthy one. Your own hands and blades are one of the fastest ways a disease jumps from a sick plant to a good one. I know it's hard to pull a plant you've been nursing all summer, but pulling one plant today is how you save the other 10. Bonus: the 20-minute setup that saves your summer, and that brings me to the bonus I promised you at the start. If there's one thing that makes almost everything else on this list easier, it's this. Drip irrigation. Think about it. The hotter it gets in midsummer, the less any of us feel like standing out there with a hose. And that's exactly when your plants need water the most. So they get watered less, right when they need it more. And that's the real reason a lot of gardens fall apart in July and August. It's not that you stopped caring, it's just hot. Drip irrigation takes that off your plate. It puts the water right at the roots, slow and steady, on a schedule your soil actually needs, whether you feel like going outside or not. And here's why it ties this whole video together. Consistent moisture is the hidden thread behind half the problems we talked about today: the cracking, the blossom end rot, the stress. That's steady, even soil your mulch is trying to hold on to. Drip irrigation is what keeps it that way, automatically. The best part? A simple setup takes about 20 minutes to put in. 20 minutes now, and it saves you countless hours and a whole lot of lost fruit for the rest of the season. So there they are, the 6 things that decide your midsummer tomato harvest, plus the one setup that ties them all together. Now, if you haven't been doing any of these, I know it can feel like a lot all at once, so don't try to do everything today. Just pick the easy ones. Go check what kind of mulch is sitting under your plants. Start picking your big tomatoes at that first blush. Little changes, made over a season or two, and your garden gets better and better without the stress. Because at the end of the day, this is supposed to be enjoyable. The whole point is the journey of it, getting out there, watching things grow, bringing home fruit you grew yourself. So take what's useful here. Start with whatever feels easiest, and let the rest come in time. And if you want to keep going, my next video takes these same ideas and puts them to work on peppers and the rest of your summer garden. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.